Hello everyone, this is Nyessa, and welcome back to part 2 of an interview with Edda Wintertongue. Good afternoon. I was thinking that today we might take a walk together up towards Riverwood while we continue our conversation. The next set of questions comes from Telepsichola, who asks, does Edda still want to work as a bard after the events of Skyrim? When all's said and done, whether I leave here or decide to settle down in Skyrim, yes, I do want to continue working as a bard. Now, I don't know if that'll actually be possible, but if it is, then I have every intention of doing so. Now, the next question is closely related. Any plans for the future? Right now, my plans are all about opposing the Thalmor, and that's all I can really think about for the time being. But beyond that, and beyond trying to find my family again, the clearest idea I have is to go back to the Bard's College and study there. My highest ambition, before all this happened, was to someday perform for the court of the Countess of Bruma. But by now, I've had the opportunity to perform for the courts of multiple Jarls. So perhaps I can set my sights a little higher after everything else has calmed down a bit. Next is, does she write letters to her friends in Bruma? I'm assuming you mean my friends in Bruma City, since apparently you already know that I've written letters home to Mother and Brother Roland, and that I sent a bit of a response to the message that Claudia sent through Brother Roland. But the truth is that I haven't really been keeping up with correspondence beyond that. I did send one quick letter to my employer and her husband once I got to Whiterun, just to let them know that I was safely in Skyrim, but that's just about it, and now I'm feeling kind of guilty for not writing more. And the next question is, something/someone she misses the most? This is a little tricky. I mean, there's Mother, of course, but it's not easy to rank the people who are important to me. I guess I would say Brother Roland and Claudia the most. They're sort of two opposing forces in my life. Brother Roland is the stabilizing force. He keeps me steady. And Claudia is the one who takes me out of my comfort zone and gets me to try things that otherwise I wouldn't have thought of. I miss both of them a lot. But I guess on a more lighthearted note, one thing that I miss that I haven't been able to find in Skyrim is a hurdy-gurdy. Now, the lute is my best instrument, but I know how to play a few others, and the hurdy-gurdy is one of them. If you're not familiar with that instrument, I highly recommend trying to find a local hurdy-gurdy player and taking a listen, because it can be a lot of fun. Finally, what's her favorite outfit? I suppose of the ones that I have here in Skyrim, the dress that I'm wearing right now is probably my favorite. I love green, it's my favorite color, and I kind of like all the lace that this dress has. It's a little something nice without being so fancy that I feel uncomfortable wearing it, like that outfit that I got in Solitude. As for the clothes that I left behind back home in Bruma, my favorite would have to be this dress that Claudia brought back for me from the Imperial City. It's kind of similar to this dress in style, but it's yellow, and it has ribbons on the sleeves, and the skirt is embroidered with this pattern of leaves. It looks kind of like they're being blown around in the wind. It's a dress that I normally saved for festive occasions. The next set of questions come from Game Knight Nirnie, who asks, being a person of great importance does put some pressure on one such as yourself. Have you felt it already, or do you still make plans about your future as if you were a normal person? You know, if you had asked me this question a week ago, less than a week ago, I would have given you a very different answer than the one that I have now. No, the truth is, I don't even really know what normal means anymore. I had all these plans. I had this idea of what my life was supposed to be like. And now it's completely out the window. I may have some idea still of what I want, but actual plans for the life that I would hope for, that's not something that I can try and build right now. And I know that. I know that all too well. And the next question is, as Dragonborn, I hope that you understand that your doings and actions will have significant influence on not only Skyrim but all of Tamriel. Are you ready for this responsibility? Well, the short answer is no. But the long answer is that, well, I'm not entirely sure that I do understand what you're suggesting. Of course, I know that this ability, gift, curse, whatever you want to call being Dragonborn, I know that it means I have the potential to have a certain amount of influence on the way things go in Skyrim, but I'm not entirely convinced that whatever influence I may have would extend to all of Tamriel. Maybe in a certain sense, the things that I do here could have repercussions that will be felt in other parts of Tamriel, but that's a pretty indirect influence. It's not as if I think I can go and, conquer all of Tamriel and build an empire like Talos did. Whatever I do end up doing as Dragonborn, and whatever influence I might have, I doubt it will be anything near as dramatic as that. Next seems to be a direct follow-up to that question. And do you understand that this means that you maybe can't live a normal life, ever? Well, that's a cheery thought. Thanks for that. Honestly, I've been trying not to think too hard about that. I know it's a possibility. Really, it's a probability. It's the most likely outcome. But I can't really think of it in those terms. The best thing that I can do is try to build some sense of normalcy out of whatever my life ends up becoming. Even if it's not the same normal that I used to have or the same normal that I want to have. I remember growing up thinking for most of my life that my mother was not living the life that she wanted. She was living a life that she was forced into. And I don't want to live the rest of my life resenting that it's not the life I wanted it to be. But that's something that I'll have to work towards in the future, because if I'm being honest, right now, I do resent it. And finally, how do you think Rumarin will react when he gets to know that you joined the side in the war that wants to throw out the elves from Skyrim? Well, first things first. Throwing all of the elves out of Skyrim is not the goal of the rebellion. I know some people, like Galmar Stonefist for example, use the term elves as a sort of shorthand for Thalmor, but let's be very clear that the Thalmor are the real enemies here, not elves in general. And I think that we can all agree that Galmar, as loyal as he is to his Jarl, and as strong a general as he may be, he's still kind of an ass. And I don't think we can take his views on everything as exactly 100% representative of what Ulfric is trying to accomplish with this rebellion. Ulfric is a man with a much more tempered view of things. And if I truly believed that Ulfric's intention was to throw all of the elves out of Skyrim, then I wouldn't be joining him. I hope that Rumarin will understand that. He's not a particularly political man. In fact, I think it would be more fair to say that he avoids politics like the plague, so I don't really know what his opinion of Ulfric is, or what his opinion of the Stormcloaks and the rebellion as a whole is. So I can't help but be at least a little bit worried about what his reaction will be. But I suppose the best I can do is hope that he'll understand once I explain what my reasons are for why I'm doing this. The next question comes from Illya, and it is when... Really? Do I have to answer this one? Alright, fine. When will she marry Rumarin? You're not even asking if, you're just going straight to when. I mean, obviously you've all picked up on something, and yes, I like Rumarin, but I really don't know him all that well, and I'm not about to go rushing into marriage. Certainly not so soon, but maybe not ever. Apparently, you all know what I told Jade about my first attempt at marriage, and I realized I was 15 then, and I was just a kid and I didn't know what I was doing. But it's not as if that one experience is the only reason that I have a certain amount of trepidation about the idea of marriage in general. For example, there was Kay, a silversmith's apprentice who I saw for a little while when I was new to Bruma, and he was nice enough, I suppose, but he proposed to me and started coming up with the names of our future children after I had been seeing him for 6 weeks, which, by the way, is the same amount of time that I've known Rumarin. So that sent me running for the hills. And then there was Vincent. Vincent, I thought he was perfect. He was sweet and intelligent and generous, and he treated me like I was something special. And the problem is, what he didn't tell me is that he was already married. And when I found out, he expected everything to just continue on as it already was. But I didn't quite see things that way, and I ended up writing a very awkward letter to his wife. So marriage may be a fine thing for some people. It seems to be working out pretty well for my friends Gerlob and Harald, and for Tevrith and his wife. But so far, my experiences have led me to believe that perhaps it's not something that's meant for me. The next couple of questions come from SwanofMischief, who asks, "So, Edda, what is Autumn Law like in your words/opinion?" Autumn Law is a breath of fresh air. Well, sort of. In some ways, she reminds me a little bit of my mother, but don't tell her that. I can just imagine the teasing I would get if she heard that I'd said that. But while Autumn Law is less serious than my mother is, and she's certainly less judgmental, they both have a certain sort of wry sense of humor that I've learned to appreciate even when I'm the target. But in any case, one of the things that I really appreciate about Autumn Law is that she's actually fairly insightful, and she doesn't have much of a stake in all of these things that I've gotten myself involved in, so she gives me an outsider's perspective without much bias or any sort of agenda that she's trying to push. And I think that is a big part of why I've come to trust her so quickly and so easily. And the second question from SwanofMischief is, any interesting stories we haven't seen on the show? Now, my understanding is that all of you have been able to see pretty much everything that I've done since I've come to Skyrim, except for some of the times when I haven't really been doing anything interesting at all, like when I've been practicing alchemy or smithing or things like that. But I suppose I could tell you a story about something that happened before I came to Skyrim. Let's see... Okay, how about this one? I've mentioned my friend Gerlob before, Gerlob Grimarja. She was my boss at the Laughing Scamp Inn in Bruma, which is where I worked for most of the time that I lived there, and as you can probably guess from her name, she's an orc. So the Laughing Scamp Inn is located pretty close to the gates of the city, so we get a lot of traffic from travelers, caravan guards especially. And one evening this group of caravan guards came in, 2 Bretons and an Imperial. And this little trio was pretty rowdy from the moment they walked through the door, before they even started drinking anything. They were really rude to everyone, and it just got worse and worse the more they drank and the longer the evening went on. So I was performing that evening, and after a while, the loudest of the bunch, he was one of the Bretons, and he seemed to be the ringleader of the group, well, he decides that he's going to make a request for me to play a song for him. The song that he asked for was a lovely piece by the title, I'm Glad I'm Not No Orc. So you can probably guess from that title what sort of song it was, and it was nothing that I had any interest whatsoever in playing. So I told them that I wasn't going to play that, but they were getting pretty insistent, and at that point I was pretty new to my job, and I didn't really know how to handle pushy customers. As this was happening, and these 3 were trying to argue me into playing the song, Gerlob noticed what was happening, and walked over with a smile that showed every single one of her teeth. And let me tell you, that is not the sort of smile that you want to see from Gerlob Grimarja. She smiled at them, and then she smiled at me, and she said, "Play the tune, Edda." And this is one of those songs that is sung to a tune that a lot of other songs use, and that everybody knows, so I did what Gerlob asked, and I started playing. But when I got through the intro, she opened her mouth and began to sing. And she sang, I kid you not, 17 verses of this song. I had only ever heard 5 or 6 of them before, but apparently Gerlob knew all of them, and I don't like to think of how she must have learned them. Still, she kept smiling through the whole thing, and it was not a reassuring smile. At first, these 3 troublemakers seemed to think that it was funny, but the longer she went on, the more uncomfortable they got. And they were so distracted by what she was doing that they didn't notice Harald coming up behind the ringleader. A long story short, they were out on their ears pretty damned quickly, and the rest of the evening was much more pleasant for the rest of us. It's starting to grow towards evening, so I think this is a good place to stop for now. I'll see you back in Whiterun, and we can continue our conversation then.